The first steps of the future billionaire. Warren Buffett was born in 1930 in the American city of Omaha, Nebraska, where he currently lives. In the family, he was the middle of 3 children and the only son. The love to numbers was passed on to Warren from his father, entrepreneur and politician Howard Buffett. The boy idolized his father. Howard Buffett, who was left without work during the Great Depression, managed to create his investment company for modest savings from working as a stockbroker. Warren was a capable child and studied at school as an external student. As a teenager, he began to earn money by distributing newspapers on his bicycle and selling Coca-Cola and chewing gum. Buffett began to read books on investing as a child. He found them in his father's office. At age 11, he bought with his sister first shares on their total money. When their price fell, Warren was very worried. As stocks rose in price, he quickly sold them, making a profit of $5. However, if he waited a few more days, he would be able to earn almost 100 times more. This situation taught Buffett that the main virtues of a good investor are patience and composure. When Warren was 12 years old, the family moved to Washington, but the boy was very unhappy with this decision. He loved his hometown and school friends. He lost interest in studying and once even tried to run away from home. Parents did not scold him, his father only said that he was capable of more. Father's infinite faith in his son became the force that helped Warren to succeed. Buffett is convinced that his father was the best present in his life. At age 13, Warren managed to accumulate savings on which he acquired the land. The young entrepreneur began to lease it to farmers, thus obtaining a source of passive income. Buffett was not going to go to college. At 16, he graduated from high school and quite successfully became involved in the purchase of shares. The father persuaded his son to continue his education. Warren did not want to upset his father and went to college. Trying not to waste time, Buffett finished studying externally, showing brilliant results. The student who surpassed the teacher. After University of Nebraska, Buffett applied to Harvard Business School. However, at an interview, he was advised not to even dream of entering Harvard because of his too young age. Buffett later realized that was for the best. Flipping through the catalog of Columbia University, he recognized the names of teachers, Benjamin Graham and David Dodd. He read their textbook analysis of securities as a child. Warren wrote a letter, "Dear Professor Dodd, I thought you were already gone. But now, upon learning that you are alive and teaching, I really want to go to Columbia University." David Dodd appreciated the courageous act and took Buffett to the course. Warren was happy to learn from Ben Graham and considered him his main teacher after his father. A talented economist and teacher was able to inspire his students. From Ben Graham, Buffett remembered for life 2 main rules of investing. Never lose money. Never forget the first rule. Ben Graham essentially became the creator of value investing. Graham urged investors to regard the shares of companies as their own share of the business. With this approach, it makes no sense to worry about temporary fluctuations in the securities market. You need to focus on the long term. The economist believed that it was necessary to carefully study the financial statements and buy shares of undervalued companies. For many years, Buffett continued to adhere to this advice. At age 20, Warren began playing the stock exchange. He analyzed information from financial directories and looked not just for stocks, but for a potentially successful business that was underestimated by the business community. At 31, Buffett had already earned his first million, becoming Benjamin Graham's most successful student. Charismatic speaker. One of the most important for himself, Buffett considers teaching oratory with Dale Carnegie. The financial tycoon admitted that in his youth he was very afraid of public speaking. To overcome his fear, he signed up for a Carnegie course. Billionaire sure, if not for these activities, his whole life would have been different. Therefore, in the office of Buffett there are no diplomas of graduation, but on the place of honor hangs a certificate of completion of the Dale Carnegie course. Formation of a financial empire. Returning to his native Omaha in 1956, Buffett created his first investment partnership, Buffett Associates. Shareholders consistently received good dividends thanks to his forward-thinking decisions. The investor came to the conclusion that one should not confine oneself to shares of undervalued companies, and that one should not buy the shares themselves, but a well-managed long-term business that stands behind them. In 1962, Buffett became interested in the textile company Berkshire Hathaway, which was close to ruin. He dissolved his fund and began to buy up Berkshire shares. In 1965, he already had a controlling stake. Buffett led the company, redesigning it as an investment company. Having invested Berkshire's income in the insurance business that was preferential for that period, the financier discovered a gold mine. By the age of 40, his fortune was already estimated at about $30 million. Buffett continued to acquire large stakes in those companies whose reputation he trusted. At 46, he became the owner of National Indemnity Company, and a little later, Geico. In 1973, he invested $11 million in shares in the Washington Post, which now cost about $1 billion. Coca-Cola securities acquired by an investor for $1 billion went up to $13 billion. Gillette shares rose in price from $600 million to $4.6 billion for a tremendous flare in the investment business of Warren, nicknamed Visionary and Oracle from Omaha. The main feature of Buffett's approach is to avoid short-term speculation and long-term investment. Warren Buffett's personal life. As often happens with geniuses, Buffett had difficulty communicating in his youth, especially with girls. After graduation, he already had professional skills in the financial sector, but in the romantic he felt like a teenager. Buffett claims that in his life there were two decisive moments: his birth and meeting his future wife Susan Thompson. Warren was crazy about her. He immediately realized that this was his half. Susie realized this a bit later. They got married when Buffett was 21 years old, his bride was 19 years old. His family noted that the kind and caring Susan balanced Warren, made him softer. She supported him in all endeavors, devoted all of herself to her husband and 3 children, simultaneously doing charity work and fighting for civil rights. In many ways, she influenced the change in the political views of her husband. He grew up in a Republican family, and became a Democrat. In 2016, he actively supported presidential candidate Hillary Clinton and even sponsored her election campaign. Buffett was reproached for not giving enough money to charity. Susan would also like to give more, but did not interfere in her husband's business. And he believed that his wife would outlive him and then transfer the accumulated money to some charity fund, so that the amount would be more tangible. When the children grew up and began to live their own lives, Susan felt that she no longer wanted to be just a housewife. She left for San Francisco, leaving her husband in the care of her friend Astrid Mix. There was no official divorce. Moreover, the couple maintained an excellent relationship until Susan's death from cancer in 2004. 2 years later, Buffett formalized his relationship with Astrid. At that time he was 76 years old. In 2012, he himself survived prostate cancer, but managed to cope with it. At the moment, he is still married to Astrid. Genius, billionaire, philanthropist. Today, the core of the financial empire of Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, takes 4th place in the Fortune Global 500 ranking, the top of the largest world companies. The billionaire was the only one who created from scratch a company that got into the top 10 Fortune. Berkshire is a holding company that owns about 70 to 80 enterprises operating independently of each other and of Buffett himself. The only requirement that he puts forward to them is not to harm Berkshire's reputation. Warren Buffett's investment portfolio is constantly replenished with stocks of international corporations and is currently valued at approximately $660 billion. At the same time, the financial tycoon adheres to the rule to invest only in what he likes. McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Isker Metalworking, American Express, General Electric, General Motors, PetroChina, MasterCard, Kia Motors, Procter & Gamble, BNSF Rail, and much more. It is interesting that the best investor in the world has long ignored the sphere of high technologies, and only in 2011 for the first time invested in an IT company, and in 2016 acquired shares of the American corporation Apple for a total of about $1.5 billion. In 2010, Buffett wrote himself to the history by donating more than half his fortune to the Bill and Melinda Gates charity, as well as to several other foundations. The size of the donation, about $37 billion, became the largest single payment for charitable purposes in the history of mankind. 3 charitable organizations from this list are led by Buffett's children who wish to continue their mother's business. In addition, Buffett called on top businessmen on the planet to sign the Oath of Giving, an obligation to donate about 50% of his income to charity. In 2016, 154 people signed the oath. In his will, Buffett indicated that 99% of his fortune would be distributed among various charitable foundations. Another original way of charity is the annual breakfast with Warren Buffett, which is auctioned, and then the funds are transferred to charity. For the opportunity to have breakfast with a billionaire, you have to fork out In different years, the lot went for the amount of $600,000 to $2.63 million, and in 2012, for a record $3.5 million. Humble rich man. Despite his billions, Buffett does not seem to be obsessed with money at all. He leads a rather modest lifestyle and is very conservative. Having the opportunity to live anywhere in the world, he continues to live in his hometown of Omaha in the house he bought in 1957. For 55 years, he goes to work the same way. At 89, Buffett drives a Honda car on his own. Every morning he visits his beloved McDonald's and, when things are not going well at the exchange, he even saves on breakfast. The billionaire's only weakness is jet aircraft. Despite the fact that the head of Berkshire Hathaway works with money, he does not have a computer or even a calculator. His mind is so clear that they simply are not needed. Buffett conducts classes with students, publishes books on investing. Warren Buffett's quotes about finances became winged and scattered across the planet. The entire business community is still listening to him, calling them financial prophecies.